All right.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of Off the Bench. My man, Kevin Cornegay, here to give expert analysis. Our guy, Flo Montana, Javon Tavares, a little bit under the weather. Where everybody, prayers up for our guy. And what a barn burner. What an exciting game. Kevin, we have the number 4 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide, a team that some argued shouldn't even be in the college football playoff. You're one of them.
Yours truly.
And look, they take on a number 3 University of Georgia Bulldogs team, full of pride, defensive effort, Sony Michel, Nick Chubb. You've heard of the dynamic duo. You have a true freshman in Fromm. Man, what can you make of this game? We have Tua T. I'm calling him Tua T. This is my brand right here. I'm putting it out there right now. I need it patented because he played Tua T. That's Tua T making a huge play at the end of the game. Kevin, what are your first impressions of what just happened in front of our faces?
My first takeaways. And first, shout out to Javon, Flo. Get healthy. He's down with the flu, man. So, we're praying for you. But my first takeaway is young guys nowadays can play in these big games because you had freshmen out there who were making the biggest plays in that game. Let's start with Georgia's freshman quarterback, Fromm. Completely controlled the action for the first 3 quarters. And if you're Georgia, you're asking yourself, why did you take the ball out of the freshman's hands? He was making all the throws. He was making NFL-type throws. He was reading coverages. He was reading the blitz before the snap of the football. He was in complete command of the offense, Georgia's offense, in that football game. And then Nick Saban makes the big decision at halftime to go with his freshman quarterback, Tua. I cannot pronounce his last name. I don't want to butcher it. But the freshman from Hawaii, favorite player was Marcus Mariota. That was his idol. He comes in, and he's making all the throws. He made a couple freshman mistakes there. He throws the interception. The receiver wasn't looking, and then he takes the sack in overtime. And then the freshman wide receiver, Devontae Smith out of Louisiana, one of the top 5-star receivers, makes the big catch to win the ball game. So my biggest takeaway is nowadays freshmen can play, whether that's in college football or college basketball. Freshmen now are seasoned enough that they can play in these big spots. If you're Georgia, you're absolutely killing yourself right now. You get a mulligan at the end of the 4th quarter. Alabama goes for the field goal. They miss it. You have new life, and you score first. You get the field goal, and then you get the big 16-yard sack. You're sitting at second and 26.
Tell me after the big sack that they're going to play some extra careful cover 4, umbrella defense. Tell me that after a huge sack and you have a true freshman, you have a freshman that has to drive 46 yards and he's 16 yards behind scrimmage. Tell me that you're going with a safer coverage. Tell me that's what happened.
Gosh. Tell me you're not going to go with a single high safety. They had a single high safety 15 yards back, and all the freshmen had to do was something that they teach quarterbacks in high school. Basic. Look off the safety. If you know you're going to go to the left, look off your safety to the right. If you know you're going to go to the right, look off your safety to the left. And that's all he did. Looks the safety off, has his feet going in the wrong direction. They had a single high safety. You got to play prevent. You got to play for them to throw the ball to the end zone 3 times because they're not going to be able to kick the field goal. So a colossal mistake by Georgia. And you got to look at the coaching. they're not putting their players in the proper position so they can go out and make play.
Now, I'm gonna be really frank here and say that I just don't think that Fromm played this. It's a tale of two halves, and Fromm, it wasn't just Alabama's defense. There was a number of throws that I saw in the second half, underthrowing the guy in the flats, overthrowing a guy on the sideline, makeable throws that where he had receivers that had created separation where he didn't necessarily execute. And I'm going to credit the Crimson Tide's defense in the second half. What's his name? Raekwon something. He's a tackle or defensive end. This guy was making plays. They were in the backfield. They were getting to the quarterback. And Fromm had to make some throws under duress. Sometimes he had phantom pressure, and he made some throws that weren't on point. I thought Sony Michel had a good game. He was dominant in the first half, came out in the second half. Chubb never got it going. They never had the 1-2 punch. You had was it Ridley, the last name, the receiver? Yeah. The brothers having a competition, and the Georgia brother was getting the best of it at first. Riley Ridley, I think.
Let me ask you this: in terms of Fromm, remember they had the 80-yard touchdown throw to Hardman, I believe. I think that was in the third quarter. Do you think that Georgia coaches dialed it back when they were up 20-7 and they said, let's just try to get to the finish line? Or do you think it was just Fromm feeling the magnitude of possibly winning a national championship game? What would you say you thought it was?
I would say it's a combination. I thought their play calling got conservative. I thought the shots that they were taking, they really, I think, tried to throw Alabama off up front with them expecting them to be that 70-30 run-heavy offense. And they turned around and said, hey, we're going to come out throwing the ball. And we're going to come out taking shots, and we're going to come out and expose. You bring in 8 in the box and making these aggressive decisions at the line of scrimmage. And I thought Fromm handled that well at first. In the second half, when they dialed it back and they weren't making those same throws, and they were relying heavier on the run, I also thought that the throws that they did put Fromm in a position to make, he wasn't able to execute properly. And I thought that was a lot of pressure. I thought not only was he facing a top-rated defense that's healthy now, but also he was, feeling the pressure to make plays at critical junctures. And I don't think that those pressures are above him, but I thought that if he was able to make 2-3 more throws, third down conversions in tough situations where they were able to advance the ball and maybe get into field goal range versus punting where they were right on that fringe level, I thought that that could have been a difference.
There was a 3rd and 3 there. You make a great call. In the fourth quarter, it was right after Alabama scored the field goal. It was right. 3rd and 3, and Fromm could not hit the receiver, the freshman running back, number 7. He ran an option route out of the backfield, and he was open, huh?
Swift? Was it Swift?
Swift, yes, Swift. The freshman. It was an option route against the linebacker, and he was open, and Fromm couldn't get him the ball. And that was a 3-and-out, and that was their second 3-and-out consecutively. And so you saw Alabama, the time of possession in the fourth quarter had to be 2-1. They had 11 first downs in the fourth quarter, Alabama did. Georgia had 2. So they started to wear that defense down. And remember, your offense helps your defense. If you can get a couple of first downs and not just go 3-and-out 2 to 3 times in a row, you're putting a lot of pressure on your defense. They're taking a lot of snaps in the second half. And then Alabama, remember, Roll Tide, they're starting to get that running game rolling with the freshman Najee Harris coming in and providing that burst. Then you got the big fella, absolutely. The big fella, Bo Scarborough, and he just wears on you. He just leans on you. The big 6'3" 250-pound running back, and then you bring Najee Harris in with the speed, and they just held the ball in the fourth quarter. Too many 3-and-outs, and I think Fromm has to be the blame. He couldn't hit those throws he was hitting in the first half.
Well, here's where I'm going to change the narrative a little bit from Georgia letting it slip away to the Crimson Tide taking control of the game.
Yes.
Their defense in the second half, it was night and day. They were able to get off the field on third down, which is huge. And I cannot overstate. It would be impossible to overstate the guts that Nick Saban had to say, I'm taking out my guy who's lost 2 games in 2 years, I think, or something crazy like that. Maybe even better record than that. And you bring in a freshman quarterback in a national championship game with all the marbles on the table. And on top of that, you change some of your running back rotation to get Najee Harris the ball.
Right.
And these guys both show up. You cannot overstate how well coached his team is to change parts in the biggest stage with the pressure that could crack pipes,
right,
and come out and shine like diamonds. He played to a T. And Najee Harris, what big plays. They overcame 2 missed field goals during the game. One that they played an absolutely flawless clock execution game down the stretch. To a T, got chewed out by Saban for not getting that playoff right before, but they were still able to get the last shot, got the ball moved over to the left, got everything they wanted. You got it in position where you wanted, and you hook it wide left.
Nick Saban worked under Bill Belichick for a few years and really learned situational football. Those are little things that you're talking about. Get the ball in the middle of the field for the kicker.
Right.
Knowing exactly when to snap the football. Placing the ball where only your receiver has a chance to catch it, on third down conversions. Holding the ball high and tight, when you're going for the first down. The ball's not swinging all over the place. This is a well-coached Nick Saban. All of his teams are well-coached, just like Bill Belichick, especially for situational football when you need a big play. Jared Payne, the defensive tackle, interception off of a tip ball. It just seems like their players are always in a position to be able to make the play, and then they make the play. And then again, Nick, not being afraid to play the freshmen. He had freshmen all over the field in the national championship game. And so to have the confidence that your coaching staff and yourself have prepared these young men to go out and make plays, let's hang loose. Let's throw these guys in there because we believe in them, and they showed up big time. So you're right. Alabama took this game in the second half, and just Nick Saban's ball control, time, possession, understanding. We don't have to panic just yet. Let's change the offense a little bit. Let's go a little bit of spread. Okay, we're back in the game. Let's get our running game back into it. So just going back and forth, knowing they had enough time to be able to come back. College football is an extremely long, especially in the playoffs. These games can go 4 hours, 4 hours and 20 minutes. So you understand that there's so much football to be played. Even when you're down 20-7, it's only mid-third quarter. There's a ton of football left. So let's just stay on the grind. Let's be relaxed, and our defense is going to take over, and then we're going to make some plays offensively. This is a great win for Alabama.
It was a great game. I remember, to your point, they put up a graphic right at the end of the third quarter saying, hey, Georgia was up, 21-10. And third quarter, last year they lost 28-21. Here we are. They're up 21-10. Can they do their thing? And it was almost like, why'd you even have to put that graphic on the screen?
Right.
Like, you
Right.
almost like jinxed it for Georgia.
Right.
But, again, to the Crimson Tide's credit, they really dared to continue to make plays throughout the whole game. Like, just because you're able to make plays quarters 1 through 3 on the biggest stage, guess what? Quarter 3 through 4 is a whole different ball game.
Oh, it's different.
I mean, that crowd was amped. That crowd was into the game from the outset. I mean, I think Trump came into more boos than he came into cheers. Okay? Shout out to everybody out there in Mercedes-Benz.
Oh, my goodness.
Making sure that everybody, their presence was felt. And I don't, before I don't want to digress too far, but Kendrick Lamar's performance at halftime.
Well, he's a guy that's always going to put on a great show. The thing about him, he's always going to put on a great show. You're going to get your money's worth. He's great at the craft. He's a great showman, and he's always going to give the fans their money worth. If you go to a Kendrick Lamar concert, you're not going to be cheated. He's going to give you optimum effort.
There's no question about it. I had the fortune to see him at the Fox Theater in Oakland, and performing essentially the Good Kid, Mad City, and the To Pimp a Butterfly project. And this guy is a MC's MC. This guy is an all-time great, a living legend. And, performing the songs he did, being able to change up, some of the lyrics and cadences and the live band and some of those improvisations and vocal recordings, the mixture of how he did it, masterful performance. And again, going on to another masterful performance, 5 championships in 9 years. I think I don't care what circle you're in, that qualifies as a dynasty.
Right.
Nick, I have a problem with Nick Saban fundamentally for what happened with the professional Miami Dolphins and him leaving them high and dry. I just remember that debacle. I wasn't a huge, college football fan, and I'm still not as fanatical about it as you and Javon, but I mean, this guy, his results speak for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what else is there to say about the legacy and the rich college football history and where he places himself? He didn't want to talk about it after the game, but where he places himself in the annals of coaching college football history, where do you assess his legacy, what he was able to do, not just at LSU, but at Alabama, in the SEC, in one of the toughest conferences in football? What can you say about Nick Saban?
Well, I think he's the greatest college football coach of all time. I think he's one of the all-time coaches in any sport. Now, he doesn't get the top rung for me just in terms of his professional career. Obviously was not successful. So, that we're always going to be able to look at that and say, hey, he wasn't able to do it on that level. Like a Pete Carroll. Carroll won a couple championships at USC, and then he goes to Seattle and wins a Super Bowl there. That's something.
Jimmy Johnson?
Jimmy Johnson as well, absolutely. Jimmy Johnson as well. So they were able to win at the highest level, college football and pro. But when we talk about Nick Saban, college football, he's the greatest coach of all time in college football. He wins at 2 different institutions down there in the SEC. It's harder to win national championships now than it was yesteryear, just because the teams across the country have just as many athletes. All of these teams have great athletes. Doesn't matter what conference you're in. His former assistant, Lane Kiffin, went down to Florida Atlantic University. He blew somebody's doors off in the bowl game they were playing in. and he has NFL athletes who are going to be drafted into the NFL on his roster. Alabama has obviously NFL talent. Ohio State has NFL talent. But even these smaller schools, University of Buffalo up in New York, they have NFL talent. So all of these teams have talent. It's harder to win nowadays. And he can't stock up on talent like he used to be able to do. The scholarship limit down to 85 now. They did that to try to spread the talent across the country. So I think it's harder to win now. I think he's won in multiple ways. This was a national championship that was kind of unconventional for them. They had to throw the ball to get it. Normally, Nick Saban teams are just going to pound that football, and then their defense is going to, take complete control. He didn't have a great special teams this year. Nick Saban normally has dominant special teams. They struggled with special teams. So he won, I think, in a different way this year. They didn't get anything going. They don't have returners. I mean, they didn't even get anything going. So I think he wins in multiple ways. He's able to make those in-game adjustments. His recruiting prowess is tremendous. He's always going to have top 10 classes come in. And here's the big thing, the development of his players. They come in as freshmen and they get better each and every year. And then by the time they're ready to go to the NFL, they go there and they're able to make an impact there as well. So I think he checks all the boxes when you're looking for, and his graduation rate for the kids going there has increased as well. So I think when you look at Nick Saban, you're able to win at LSU. You go to the NFL, you come back, and you pick up right where you left off. I think the first year at Alabama, he goes 7-6. And then after that, it's 10-win season after 10-win season, consistent. So shout out to Nick Saban. Not a guy I particularly like either, but we give credit where credit is due on off the bench. We have no problems doing that.
And I couldn't sum it up better than how you summed it up. I mean, a legacy that's really cemented. I mean, LSU, he won one there too, right?
Yes, he did. He won one there at LSU, yes.
And that went back when they were hoisting the big crystal ball.
Crystal football.
I don't know which one I like better, man. I think I like the crystal football.
I like the crystal football better, man. The crystal football.
I mean, that's just me. I mean, it was blingy. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it was just one thing it up. It didn't have like an elongated neck. It was just like, bam, past big, crystal egg. I'm kind of feeling the crystal football. Nick Saban has to be one of the greatest college football coaches, if not the greatest of all time, for all the reasons that you mentioned. And if you're Georgia, are they right back at this level next year with the recruits that they're able to get, with the young talent? Obviously, Fromm is a freshman. You have Sony Michel. I mean, will he stay or not? You have Chubb. I mean, are these guys positioned to come back next year and be a force?
Yes, they are. Now, Chubb and Sony Michel are seniors, so they'll be moving on to the NFL. But they have the number one recruiting class. The coach's name is escaping me. Help me with the coach's name. It was Nick Saban's assistant last year. I couldn't tell you. Name is escaping me. Yeah, he's a terrific coach, terrific recruiter. They got the number one recruiting class in the country. From the freshman quarterback, he'll be a sophomore next year. He'll make that leap. He'll be better. Their defensive line and offensive line are dominant. They'll be right back into the mix next year. This is going to be a very, very good Georgia team from now. They've always been very good. Now, they haven't made it to the title game when Mark Richt was the coach, but they were always right into the mix there, with Alabama, LSU, and Florida in that SEC. This year, obviously, they're able to get to the title game, and they're going to have a good shot of being able to do it again next year. So they're going to be right back at it. Georgia fans, you guys are going nowhere anytime soon. You're going to be able to compete for championships for a long time.
Now, with Chubb and Michelle being seniors, and moving on, and you see them playing on Sundays next year. Who do you see? Do you see like the complexion or the dynamic or the identity of the Bulldogs changing to where they're letting Fromm be more pass heavy, or do they recruit some 5-star? I didn't keep track of the high school recruits that Georgia got, but are they getting these highly recruited running backs to be able to play the same system essentially, or do you see them, maybe letting Fromm cut loose a little bit more this next year?
I know they signed a 5-star. 5 stars are highest rated. They got a 5-star running back that's coming into the fold next year. They got Slade will be back as the sophomore. They're gonna let Fromm let it rip though, I believe. I mean, I think they're really gonna
Yeah.
open up the spread offense and let him sling it because he can throw the football. They have most of their receivers, I think, will be back, so they'll be able to develop in the spring and in the summer, and then they're going to be an offense if they let it rip. That's going to really be able to put a lot of points on the board. The thing with SEC football that a lot of people don't talk too much about, there's not a lot of NFL caliber quarterbacks that play in the SEC. The SEC's quarterback situation has a lot to be desired. So when you have guys that can throw it, Alabama now has a quarterback, Tua that can sling it down the field. From they can open up the offense a little bit now and not just play that ground and pound type football game, but now be able to spread out, run quick plays, get to the line of scrimmage, make a quick check, and throw the ball down the field. So I expect Fromm to continue to develop, and they're not going to hold him back. They're going to let him let loose. He has a cannon of an arm. He can make all the throws. And like we saw in the first half, he was making NFL throws. And you have to make those types of throws against the Alabama defense.
Head, there was a couple of throws that I was very impressed by. One of which was a back shoulder fade on the left hash mark. The guy was able to turn around. The Alabama cornerback never saw the throw coming. And, those type of throws are definitely NFL throws. Shots that he took, to the sideline that look like he made look like routine throws, but these are throws that can easily be pick sixes. And, those sideline route throws on a dime are very impressive throws. That's a long throw, sometimes across the body, and people don't realize the type of technical proficiency that's required for those type of throws. And so I definitely saw a lot of potential. There was one particular play that was almost intercepted by the Alabama defender, and then his receiver was able to make a play on it. The same guy made the number 4, the same guy that made a huge play earlier in the game. And that type of moxie, that type of confidence, that type of creativity and confidence in yourself as a freshman will only grow next year. So, and enough to be said about the penultimate team, with Alabama claiming its 5th title in 9 years. Now, you were skeptical, you were critical of them getting in. Can you really argue if they should have been there? I understand in terms of the process and things that they didn't maybe have to come up against, and obviously 30 days is a lot to get a linebacker core healthy that struggled with injury during the year. A lot of things happened at the right time for Alabama. It was kind of like a perfect storm that came into fruition for them to be able to end up national champions here. Do you really can we really sit back and say Alabama shouldn't have been there?
Absolutely not. They just won the championship. So, I had reservations about right. I mean, they beat Clemson, who I thought was the best team in the country. They took care of them, and then go on to be able to beat Georgia as well. So the only reservation I had was I do want to expand the playoff to the 8 teams because I do like to see the conference champions get in and then give us 3 at-large teams that might not have won their conference championship, and we could put them in. I'd like to see that.
Can we get Central Florida?
So no, I'd have put them in. I would have put them in. I would have put them in. You know. Yeah, I would have put them in. They could be the 8 seed, but I would have put them in and let them compete. You know, but when you looked at Alabama and their schedule this year, I was looking for the wins. Where were the big wins? The SEC was down this year. And Florida State, you know, they ended up falling flat on their face this year, so that didn't end up being a big win. So I was just looking for the big wins. Here's another genius thing of Nick Saban. Yeah, I'm going to get on you, Nick Saban. You're not slick. Listen to this schedule here. Alabama played 7 home games this year. They played 3 road games. One of the road games was at Vanderbilt in Nashville. That was a semi-home game because half the stadium was in red. They played 7 home games. They played 2 road games, 2 true road games at Texas A&M, where they struggled and won, at Mississippi State, where they needed a last-second touchdown from the youngster that caught it tonight, Devontae Smith. He caught the winning touchdown against Mississippi State. So 2 true road games. They played 1 neutral site game in their region. So they played a neutral site game in Atlanta against Florida State. Then the week before they played Auburn, they played a team called Mercer. So they ended up having 3 open dates. They had 2 regular open dates, and then I call the Mercer game an open date because their starters played 1 quarter. Then they play Auburn. They don't win that game. They don't have the extra game at all, and then they still get into the playoffs. Nick Saban, you're a genius. This is what he does. He plays 6 to 7 home games every year and plays 2 to 3 road games every year, and he'll never play a top team out of conference on the road. And he can do that because he's won championships.
Hold your horses. Are we really going to say that being home or away is that big of a deal? I mean, what happened tonight? I mean, that was essentially about a 60-40 Georgia crowd. I felt that was a Georgia dominant crowd. And I mean, I think Nick Saban teams are so dialed in. I mean, that last game against Clemson, it was like, we're here to prove a point. You didn't think we were supposed to be here? We're going to squash you like a bug. You're going to be in a telephone booth. You're not going to breathe. You're not going to move. You're not going to feel comfortable. Their defense was dominant and aggressive. It was like they were trying to prove a point. And then you turn around and you don't obviously have the same preparation time. And they did not look particularly good in the first half. However, when they were able to make the adjustments at halftime and really get into different play calling defensively and deciding when and where they were going to be aggressive, where those blitzes were going to come from, they really made some key adjustments in the second half to get to the quarterback, to get him flustered, to give him different looks that even when pressure wasn't actually there, it felt like it was. And like Alabama preaches, it's not necessarily about getting the big play all the time, but it's about affecting the quarterback. Similar in basketball, to where you don't always have to block a shot for it to be a great defensive attempt. If you alter the shot, if you make it a more difficult shot, if you change the arc or trajectory or in the quarterbacking, the point where they throw the ball, where they're able to plant their foot, their timing is a little bit off. Those fractions of a second, those little minute things are the difference between an interception and an errant throw or a 3rd and long.
Absolutely.
Or getting off the or punting the ball 4th down. And I thought Alabama really just those changes, those subtle changes, and some of those wrinkles where they were able to stunt at the defensive line and really got guys coming back around and just giving different looks on the defensive front and mixing up bull rushes and swim techniques. It was the intricacies and the minutia of the game are things that Nick Saban and his preparation from top down from coaches, it drives them away. It gets them out of town. It gets them championships. It gets them coaching jobs, but it's effective. I don't care what way you cut it. It's effective. So again, congratulations. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, man. Congratulations to the Crimson Tide fans, man. Great championship game. What
this go ahead.
Let's cover one more and then we'll get out of here. Want to talk some NFL?
Yeah, let's talk some NFL, man. We had a really exciting wild card weekend. We had the Rams going home, one and done. We had the Bills getting out. We had Kansas City with a monumental meltdown against the Lions. Let's start there. Let's just start there. Mariota played well. You had a masterful performance at the running back. Running back with DeMarco Murray out. Big day. You had the Kansas City Chiefs up. Were they up 16-0?
Up, they're up 18 points. 21-3 at the half, I believe it was.
What did you make of the Kansas City Titans game, man?
Yeah, it was obviously Kansas City let that one go. You just have to run the football. I don't understand why they're running back. I think it was Hunt, right?
I don't. Oh, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't understand why he only gets 11 carries. You gotta run the football. Congratulations to Tennessee. They never gave up. Mariota made some plays out there, but I think it was more of a situation of Kansas City blowing the football game. If you're Andy Reid, that is probably the toughest loss of your coaching career, even tougher than the Super Bowl loss to New England. This is a game where you should have won by 14 points, and you should be on your way to Pittsburgh. Whether going to Pittsburgh or you should be on your way to go to New England and play a big-time matchup against the Patriots. Your defense was playing well in the first half. Your defense played well throughout the game. I just think it was your offense that put the defense in very tough positions out there, and not being able to run the ball and just drown the clock out, and you get away with the easy W. So if you're and this is going to be a big time, I think there's going to be a regime change. Alex Smith is no longer going to be there at the quarterback position. I think they're going to take they're going to take a long look at Andy Reid. I don't know if they made a decision or not, but they're going to take a long look at that. And Andy Reid, I think he needs to go back to calling plays again. They were saying his offensive coordinator was calling the plays, but as a head coach, you've got to get in his ear and say, run the football. Run the football. So just a terrible loss. Okay, so
then Kelsey got knocked out during that game, didn't he?
Right.
So I'm thinking this is a big deal. I mean, this guy is an all-pro. He's a top-notch performer. This is a guy that they were able to here's the thing.
That's a good point.
I know there's three phases of the game. You have offense, defense, you have special teams. And then within an offense, you have segments of the field that you're able to attack based on the strengths of your particular team. Either you can attack the running game, the middle of the field. If you have great perimeter players, you can attack from the wide receiver position. And being able to take away the whole middle of the field, Kelsey's no longer there. You don't have to worry about separation with their second string tight end the same way. You don't have to worry about the same coverages helping over the top. That's huge. When you start making a team take away dimensions of their offense and all of a sudden have to play in a different type of ball game or an alternative style that is not their strengths or they're not as accustomed to, and defenders are able to have a higher degree of predictability of your play calling. The Titans aren't a bad team. They were just kind of inconsistent. They're not a bad team. They have talent. They have players on both sides of the ball. They're pretty well coached in all phases of the game, and they just weren't able to be that consistent. And they had some injuries at key positions throughout the year too. So let's not act like the Tennessee Titans weren't prepared to take advantage of these situations that presented themselves against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Now, I forgot, we will have a show Thursday evening. So we could we'll finish up talking NFL football there.
Okay.
Let's do this real quick though. Let's do this real quick, and then we'll get out of here because our partner in crime, Javon Tavares, is ill tonight. Let's give a quick prediction. Jacksonville at Pittsburgh. This is for you, Flo Montana. We're gonna talk your Pittsburgh Steelers now. We're not gonna let you try to downplay your Steelers, who have a legitimate shot as winning ring number 7, I believe. I think you guys you have a legitimate. We're not gonna let you downplay it. So give me a quick prediction. Jacksonville at Pittsburgh. Boy, did they play an awful football game on Sunday.
God, I mean, that thing was like it's like watching grass grow. I was really, it was some sloppy football out there. I mean, you had, obviously, Jacksonville is a great defensive team, not a good defensive team. They're a great defensive team, and they had Lattimore. No, I'm sorry, wrong team. They had some players coming back on the Buffalo side with LaShawn McCoy having nursing that ankle injury, and they weren't. He wasn't 100% healthy. But that notwithstanding, that kind of defensive performance gives me some concern going, with Pittsburgh facing this team. I don't think Bortles is a great quarterback. I don't think offensively that, honestly, they're going to be able to do enough to beat the Steelers, because the Steelers, they're not their defense isn't quite as stout as it has been in the past, but they're still able to make key plays, and they're so much more prolific offensively that not only do you have to keep up with them defensively, you have to be able to score.
Right.
And you're going to have to be able to score more than 20 points. You're not going to be able to score 16, 18 points and win some defensive against the Pittsburgh Steelers, because they may take the ball and score on defense, but they're going to score on offense. With that wide receiver core, with that running back, with that quarterback, and the confidence collectively they have as a unit and as well coached as they are, you are going to have to score points. And Jacksonville is not going to score points like that on the Steelers. I have the Steelers winning this one 30-13.
Wow, that is a score right there. I got the Steelers winning. I know Jacksonville beat them early in their season, right? I think it was in September. I think it was.
That's when said he didn't have it anymore.
Right. Yeah, that's right. But this will be a different story. I mean, Pittsburgh in the playoffs, hosting a playoff game. There's not a lot of teams that get out of Pittsburgh with a W in the playoffs, especially with a quarterback that's as ineffective as Blake Bortles, who I believe rushed for more yards than he threw for. I think he threw for 87 yards, and rushed for 88 yards. So, they don't have a shot at being able to beat Pittsburgh. In Pittsburgh, you're going to have to score some points. I look for Big Ben to get the ball out a little quicker than he normally does, because that pass rush is no joke for Jacksonville. And I look for Pittsburgh to have a nice 27. I'm going to go 27-14. 27-14 victory for Pittsburgh, setting up their matchup with New England to get to the Super Bowl. So, Flo, your Steelers, man, you don't have anything to worry about this weekend. You guys are and that's regardless if Antonio Brown plays or not. I think that you're going to get a victory at home and set up an opportunity for you to get back to the Super Bowl, man. So don't be stressed about it. We're not going to let you downplay it. You're a heavy favorite this weekend. Heavy favorite.
And with the turmoil, all of a sudden in New England, in Pat's world, this may be a prime opportunity for the Steelers to just jump all over them.
Right.
I mean, Brady can't have his trainer at the facility. Belichick might have to be back. He might be going to New York. Kraft is making decisions. Jimmy GQ is out of there because Tom Brady's 58 years old. You have a lot of things going on where it may be the perfect storm for Tomlin and his Steelers, who have had some disgruntled players and some controversy and some anthem controversy and some bike riding, and there's just been a lot of stuff going on for the Patriots. I mean, for the Steelers, I'm sorry, to where it may be a perfect storm for them to come in, lay that steel curtain, get that terrible towel going, right, and then to get some things going at Heinz.
Right. Man, great impromptu show, man. We covered that national championship for you. Roll Tide, Alabama, the Crimson Tide, get it done again. Nick Saban, 6th national championship. And I think that'll be it for us, man.
Hey, thank you guys for rocking with us on this impromptu college football championship special edition of Off the Bench. I am Sean Destin on behalf of Kevin Cornegay and our under the weather friend, Flo Montana, Javon Tavares. Thank y'all. Be blessed. We'll see you back Thursday.